you everybody for joining our presentation today. Our presentation today is based on our research article my colleague and I have written. The title of the research article and our presentation today is The Perceptions of Lecturers about Blended Learning at a Particular Higher Institution in South Africa. Our study aimed to achieve two objects. Firstly, to investigate the perceptions of 13 lecturers at a particular higher institution regarding their views of the advantages and challenges of blended learning in South Africa. And secondly, to analyze the support that the participant lecturers needed to ensure that they implement the blended learning approach successfully. The reasons my colleague and I decided on this theme is that although in our research we found that there has been development in supporting lecturers to improve their teaching and approaches to utilize a blended learning approach, its application has not changed and many challenges are still experienced. We also found that most of the research has been conducted in European countries such as Belgium, the UK, and Italy. Limited research has been done in this regard in the South African context. To begin our study, we researched various definitions of blended learning. We found that different terms have been used to refer to blended learning, such as brick and click instruction, hybrid learning, dual mode instruction, blended pedagogies, high-flex learning, targeted learning, multimodal learning, and flipped learning. Blended learning can also be defined as the merging of face-to-face learning and online learning, which leads to more adaptable learning experiences and in turn, more successful learning. The use of different technologies facilitates communication among students and between students and their lecturers. And finally, the integration of traditional classroom teaching with e-learning. For our research, we used the technology-enhanced learning model as our theoretical orientation. This model is based on 6 factors: the subject area, learning models, participants, outcomes and issues, research methods, and adopted technologies. When implementing this theory for our research, its focus on smart pedagogy was particularly appealing to us because pedagogy is a section of science that deals with the process of teaching and learning, and smart refers to the adoption of digital technologies to support teaching and learning. The fact that this model refers to 3 different ways in which teaching and learning occurs are beneficial for any research on blended learning. These 3 ways are: learning occurs remotely and technology is applied to ensure that remote or distance learning happens. Learning takes place face-to-face or online, but the focus is on teaching students to confidently use technology and software. And learning takes place in person or remotely. However, technology is used to ensure that students obtain access to the course content and can use technology successfully to achieve the outcome set for the course. I would like to now focus on our findings from our literature research, in which we found that when lecturers used a blended learning approach, students became responsible for their own learning experiences. This helps the students successfully achieve the learning outcomes of the lecture and ultimately the whole course of study. The literature also stressed that a blended learning approach does not mean that lecturers take a back step and allow students to be solely responsible for their own learning. It is focused on constant contact between lecturers and students. When implementing a blended learning approach, lecturers should also use a combination of technologies such as video clips, audio recordings, practical problem-solving activities, discussion forums, and online lessons. What appealed to us researchers is the fact that through the use of blended learning approach, lecturers could form their own communities of practice. This helps ensure that their teaching and learning is more successful, meaningful, and relevant. The feedback given in such a system is often instantaneous, which ensures that there are no delays and that students' findings from their learning experiences are more worthwhile and relevant. Finally, from our literature research, we discovered that blended learning also allows for deeper thinking to occur. This enables students to become more competent at problem solving, a valuable skill for all our students to become lifelong learners and successful in their future lives. I now hand over to my colleague, Dr. Mukhari, who will discuss the challenges of blended learning, our research methodology, and findings.
Thank you, Dr. Sanders, and good morning, colleagues. I'll continue with the challenges in blended learning. Lecturers not being competent enough to implement blended learning, the caliber of the learning materials that have to be designed, the type of teaching and learning that is followed, resistance on the part of the lecturers to apply this approach because of time constraints and being overburdened with extra work. The research methodology. In this research, we used a qualitative research approach. A single study case research design was employed because it allowed for an in-depth investigation of the perceptions of lecturers in a specific department. This approach would yield the most effective results because of its exploratory nature. It also empowered the researchers to discover the views of the lecturers interviewed. The personal opinions and experiences of the lecturers in the actual research field ensured that relevant information would be gained. Now I continue with the population and sample. Homogeneous purposeful sampling was used for this study. This type of sampling is a method that allows researchers to choose their samples since they share similar traits. This could be in terms of gender, age, and occupation. In this case, 13 participants who lecture in the same department and teach similar modules were chosen. The lecturers were selected because of their approachability and willingness to participate in the research study. The participants provided relevant information as they are actively involved in the university and its teaching and learning programs. In terms of data collection, the participants and the lecturers use an open-ended, semi-structured interviews helped in the triangulation of data collection methods. In this study, a thematic approach was used, which involves finding repeated meanings across the data collection. The study participants were required to complete the open-ended interview questions, which included the following. The first one, what do you understand by the term blended learning? Have you ever used blended learning in your teaching experiences? Would you be prepared to attend professional development courses on best practices in using a blended learning approach? What do you feel are the advantages and disadvantages of a blended learning approach? The findings. Lecturers were keen to make more extensive use of a blended learning approach as the numerous advantages could contribute to more successful teaching outcomes for them. However, they noted that they needed more training on how to implement such an approach successfully. There is also the need for higher education institutions to ensure that they cover the costs incurred for this professional development. Additional time should be made available for lecturers to attend the courses. Higher education institutions must ensure that the necessary reliable tools and technologies such as laptops, appropriate apps, adequate network connectivity are readily available to lecturers.
And finally, the conclusions from our research. We found that blended learning allows higher education institutions to stay current with regard to the technology advances that are needed to keep up to date. It helps the institutions improve the services offered to their students. The fact that communities of practices could easily be formed ensured that the learning experiences was enhanced. And finally, the findings of the study can thus assist future researchers on this topic and can be implemented in educational institutions worldwide. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.